The family driver shoved me into the trunk of his car on the morning of my only son's wedding. And the last thing I heard before the lid clicked shut was him whispering, "If you love Sterling, stay quiet. My name is Dahlia. I'm 53, and I run finance for our small hotel group in Charleston. I've handled lawsuits, hurricanes, and one very public bankruptcy rumor. But nothing prepared me for the smell of rubber and old tools, my navy dress bunching under my knees, my pulse slamming against my throat while a blanket smothered the little air I had left. I tried to lift it. A strong hand pressed it back down. "What the hell are you doing?" I hissed through clenched teeth. Miles, our driver for 13 years, leaned in just enough for me to hear him. "Hide. There's something you need to see. Trust me, please." The trunk shut. The darkness didn't feel like darkness. It felt like a decision being made for me. The car rolled forward. Gravel crunched. My body slid with the turn, and I caught a thin line of light through the weather strip. A tiny crack like the world was giving me permission to witness something I was never meant to know. Sterling's laugh floated from the front seat. Nervous, bright, hopeful. The laugh of a man who still believed love didn't come with fine print. "Can you believe this, Miles?" he said. "I'm actually doing it." "Yes, sir," Miles answered, calm like always. "Big day. I keep thinking, Dad should be here," Sterling added, softer now. "He'd probably make fun of me for crying." My chest tightened so hard it hurt. My husband died 3 years ago, and grief doesn't leave. It just learns new places to hide. Hearing Sterling say Dad should be here made me want to pound on the trunk and climb into the front seat and hold my son's face in my hands like I did when he was little and terrified of thunderstorms. But Miles had put me in here for a reason. My phone was in my purse somewhere, useless. My nails dug into the carpeted lining as the car kept moving. Then Sterling's phone rang. "Waverly," he said, smiling in his voice. "Hey, babe, I'm on my way." Her voice came through the speakers. Smooth, warm, practiced. "Good, stick to the plan, okay?" Sterling chuckled. "The plan is I show up and marry you." A pause. Not long, but just long enough to catch in the air. "Right," Waverly said. That plan. Something about the way she said it made my skin prickle. It didn't sound like a bride giddy with love. It sounded like someone checking a box. She continued, lighter now, almost laughing. "Are you with Miles?" "Yeah." "Good, don't let anyone distract you." "And your mom, she's coming separately, right?" Sterling answered easily. "Yeah, she wanted a little quiet time before the ceremony. You know how she gets." "Perfect," Waverly said. "Perfect. Not, oh, I can't wait to see her. Not tell her I love her. Just perfect. Like my absence was a helpful detail in a schedule." My mouth went dry under the blanket. Sterling's phone buzzed again. He must have glanced at it. "Weird, unknown number." "Ignore it," Waverly snapped, too fast. Then she softened again like she remembered to be sweet. "Ignore it, today is ours." He laughed, but there was a nervous edge now. Okay, see you soon." They hung up. Silence filled the car. The kind of silence that makes you listen harder. The unknown number called again. Full ring this time. Sterling answered with a low voice. "Stop calling. I told you I'm handling it, not today." He hung up quickly. Miles didn't ask questions like a normal driver might. He asked the way a man asks when he already knows the answer. "Everything all right, sir?" "Yeah," Sterling said, too quick. "Just wedding stuff." But his breathing had changed. Shorter, faster, like he was running from something he didn't want to name. The car turned left. We were not going left. Even in the trunk, I knew the route to St. Alora's. I'd been there 100 times. Fundraisers, funerals, baptisms. Life events where you pretend you're fine in front of stained glass. Sterling noticed too. "Miles, where are we going?" "Quick stop," Miles replied, voice steady. Sterling's phone chimed. He read, confused. "Waverly says there's an emergency. She sent an address. She wants me to pick her up before the church." My stomach dropped. "That's not," Sterling started, then stopped, like he didn't want to sound judgmental on his wedding day. Miles said, "We can do it, sir." The car slowed, tires humming over rougher neighborhood pavement. The kind of street where the houses sit too close together and the lawns don't have time to be pretty. We stopped. The trunk clicked once, like the metal itself had taken a breath. From inside the car, Sterling opened his door. "I'll be right back," she said to wait in the living room. His footsteps faded. Then Miles moved fast. The trunk popped open and light flooded in so harsh I winced. His face was tight, not panicked, controlled, like a man forcing fear into obedience. "Dahlia," he whispered. Now quiet. I pushed the blanket off and sat up, dress wrinkled, hair probably ruined, but my mind sharper than it had been in months. I climbed out, my legs shaky from the cramped space, and Miles guided me behind the sedan so we were hidden from the front windows. "Tell me," I breathed. "Right now, tell me what you know." He didn't answer with words. He answered by pointing. The mailbox at the curb read, "Rhodes." My throat tightened. That name hit somewhere deep, like a memory I'd tried to ignore. Rhodes was the name on a donor file I'd seen once, attached to a foundation account we flagged for fraud risk because it kept moving money through burner LLCs. Miles leaned close. "Watch the side door, not the front." "Why the side?" I whispered. "Because the front door is for Sterling," he said. "The side door is for the truth." My heart hammered so hard, I thought it might be audible. We crouched behind the car. The neighborhood was quiet. Birds, a distant lawnmower, a dog barking like it had no idea the world was about to split open. Minutes crawled. The front door opened once. I saw a flash of Sterling inside, his shoulders tense, his suit too sharp for this street. Then the door shut again. I stared at the side entrance, a plain door near the driveway, half hidden by a sagging trellis. My mind ran wild with possibilities. Drugs, blackmail, an ex, a pregnancy, a secret. I hated myself for every thought because I wanted to believe Sterling had chosen well. I wanted my son to have what I had with his father before death took it. But my instincts had been screaming for months. Waverly's questions about the business, her interest in account structures, the way she watched Sterling sign anything, even a dinner check, like she was studying his handwriting. The way she always made sure my phone was on the table during family meals, like she liked knowing when I got messages. Gaslighting comes in silk gloves. It tells you you're paranoid while it rearranges the furniture in your mind. At exactly 8:00, the side door opened. And before I tell you what stepped out of that door, quick real-life pause. If you're still listening right now, hit like, subscribe, and tell me your city and state or your country and your first name if you want. All right, now let me take you back. 2 years earlier, Sterling was drowning. His father's death left a hole in him that made him easy to comfort and even easier to steer. When he met Waverly at a charity gala, he told me she understood him. She talked about grief like she'd lived it. She cried at the right moments, laughed at the right jokes, and looked at my son like he was a miracle. I wanted to be happy for him. I wanted to stop bracing for the next disaster. But the first time she came to my office, she didn't look at the family photos on the shelf. She looked at the contracts stacked in the tray. She asked, casually, "Do you ever worry about someone draining accounts if they marry into a family business?" I remember laughing, uncomfortable. "That's a very specific fear." She smiled. "I just like to understand how things work." And Sterling, standing beside her, beaming like she hung the moon, said, "See, she's smart. She cares about the future." I swallowed my instincts and told myself I was being protective because I was lonely, because I missed my husband, because I didn't want another woman to become the center of my son's world. Miles didn't like her either. He never said it outright. He just went quieter around her, like he was watching someone who carried a concealed knife. A week ago, he knocked on my study door after midnight, face pale, hands trembling. "I did something I shouldn't," he confessed. "I followed her." I stared at him. "Miles, why?" His eyes were wet. "Because your husband made me swear, and because I saw her get into a car that wasn't hers, and because she didn't see me." I asked him where. He only said, "Tomorrow morning, you'll understand." I thought he was overreacting. Now I was crouched behind a sedan in a strange neighborhood, watching the side door of a house I'd never seen, waiting for the truth to show itself. The door opened wider. A woman stepped out in jeans, hair pulled back, moving fast, no bridal glow, no soft smile. She wasn't playing the role anymore. She was just herself. Waverly. She didn't look around the street like someone worried about neighbors. She looked around like someone checking for witnesses. Then a small voice, bright and sleepy, floated from inside the house. "Mom, are you leaving again?" The voice was small, tired, and way too trusting for what it belonged to. Waverly froze in the doorway for half a second. Then her posture softened like she flipped a switch. Her shoulders lowered, her mouth curved, her entire face rearranged into gentle. "Baby, I'll be back," she said, sweet as syrup. "I just have to handle something important." A little girl padded out behind her, barefoot on the concrete, clutching a stuffed rabbit by one ear. She couldn't have been more than 6. Her hair was tangled like she'd slept hard. She blinked at the morning sun and rubbed her eyes. "Do I have to stay quiet?" she asked. Waverly crouched, smoothing the child's hair with the kind of tenderness that almost fooled me. "Almost." "Yes," Waverly murmured. "You stay inside with him, okay? And you do not come to the front, not today, not today. Those 2 words landed in my stomach like ice. The child nodded like she'd been trained to obey. Then she leaned forward and pressed her cheek into Waverly's shoulder, sleepy and innocent. Waverly kissed her forehead, quick, efficient, like time was money. Then a man stepped into the doorway behind them. He was tall, unshaven, wearing a plain gray shirt and jeans. He looked exhausted in a way I recognized. Not tired from work, but tired from hiding. His eyes went straight to Waverly with something complicated in them, something that wasn't romantic and wasn't friendly. It was dependence. My hands went numb. Miles shifted beside me, his jaw tight. He did not look surprised. He looked furious. The man said low, "He's inside." Waverly didn't turn her head toward the street. She didn't look toward the sedan. She didn't check for neighbors. She just answered like this was routine. "Front room," she said. "Keep it down, he can't suspect anything." The man's throat worked like he swallowed something bitter. "I hate this." Waverly's eyes sharpened. "You hate being alive. You hate keeping her safe." The man flinched at that. His gaze flicked to the little girl. The little girl had already started to retreat, Rabbit dragging behind her on the concrete. She paused, looked back, and said, "Mom, will you be at my recital?" Something in Waverly's face cracked for the briefest moment. The softness there looked real. Then it was gone again. "I will," she said. "I promise." The child disappeared inside. And then Waverly stood, turned toward the man, and spoke in a voice that was not the voice she used on my son. It was flat, clean, commanding. "If you panic today, you ruin everything," she said. "If you ruin everything, we do not get out. And if we do not get out, he comes back." The man whispered, "I know." I could not breathe properly. My chest was locked. My mind kept trying to deny what my eyes were seeing. Waverly had a child. Waverly had a life she never mentioned once. Not in 2 years of dinners. Not in holiday plans. Not when she looked at Sterling and talked about our future family, like it was a sweet dream she was waiting to start. This was not a secret. This was a second identity. And the man, the way he stood in that doorway, the way he listened to her like she was the only map out of a fire, told me he wasn't an ex she was still attached to. He was an accomplice. Miles leaned close, barely moving his lips. "Watch her hands." I focused. Waverly's fingers were clutching her phone, not shaking, not nervous, controlled. She checked the screen, typed quickly, then slipped it into her back pocket. The man stepped closer. His voice was raw. "What if he finds out about the paperwork?" Waverly's mouth tightened. "He won't. Not if you do exactly what I told you. And if he does?" Waverly's eyes went cold. "Then we make him look unstable, like he is grieving, like he is spiraling, like he cannot separate grief from reality." My throat tightened so hard it burned. She had said those exact words to me once, smiling politely over a glass of wine in my kitchen. "He still has grief fog," she'd told me. "Sometimes he needs grounding. Sometimes he misreads people, but it's not his fault, it's trauma." I remembered how I nodded, ashamed, because I thought maybe I was the one misreading her. I thought maybe I was the one becoming harsh and suspicious. She had been planting doubt in me the whole time. Quietly, patiently, like poison in a spoon of honey. Miles's breath came out slow. "She is good," he whispered. "She has been practicing on all of you." The man reached for Waverly's arm. "Waverly, I can't lose her." Waverly softened again, not for him, but in a way that calmed him. Like she knew exactly which lever to pull. "You won't," she said. "This is how we win. You want her safe. I want her safe. This is the only way." The man nodded, eyes wet, and I felt something else twist inside me. That little girl was not part of some evil plan in her own mind. She was a child who wanted pancakes and recitals, and a mother who showed up. I felt a flash of pity. Then rage swallowed it whole, because Waverly was not choosing between survival and morality. She was choosing my son as the sacrifice. From inside the house, Sterling's voice called out, bright and trusting. "Babe, you ready?" Waverly turned toward the front entrance, and it was like watching an actor step onto stage. Her face warmed, her posture softened, her voice lifted. "Coming," she sang, sweet as sunlight. I stared at Miles, my eyes wide. "He cannot marry her," I whispered. Miles nodded once. "He won't." But my fear wasn't just about vows. It was about how fast this could turn. Waverly walked toward the side of the house, moving along the driveway like she'd done it 1,000 times. The man followed her, stopping short as if he was afraid to cross into the part of the day that belonged to my son. Waverly paused at the corner, glanced at the man, and said low, "Stay inside. Keep her quiet. Do not answer any calls, and do not open the door for anyone." Anyone. Her gaze flicked over the top of the sedan. For one terrifying second, I thought she saw us. Miles lowered his head, pulling me down with him behind the car. My heart slammed so hard I felt dizzy. Waverly's footsteps continued. Then she slipped through the side door again. 30 seconds later, the front door opened. And there she was, stepping out with Sterling beside her like the perfect scene. Sterling's suit was immaculate. His eyes were soft. The kind of soft that comes from a man who believes he is finally done being lonely. Waverly leaned into him, smiling like she loved him. She did not glance toward the sedan. She did not glance toward the mailbox. She did not glance toward the neighborhood. She did not glance toward the life she was hiding. "Sorry," she said, laughing lightly. "My friend had a little situation. It's handled." Sterling brushed her cheek with his thumb. "You sure you're okay?" Waverly nodded, eyes shining with just the right amount of emotion. "I'm okay now that I'm with you." Sterling smiled like she'd given him oxygen. And then she did something that made my blood run cold. She touched his lapel and adjusted it like a wife would, like she owned him. Then she reached into her purse and pulled out keys. "My car's right here," she said. "Let's drive together, just you and me. I want that moment before the church. I want to breathe." Sterling hesitated. "Miles is waiting." "I'll text him," Waverly said immediately. "Too quick, too practiced. He can meet us there." Sterling nodded. Of course he did. He wanted her happy. He wanted peace. He wanted to prove he could build something good after his father died. They walked toward a dark SUV parked near the curb. Waverly slid into the driver's seat. Sterling got in beside her. Before the door shut, Waverly glanced back toward the house, toward the side entrance. A look passed over her face. Not love, not excitement, relief. The SUV pulled away. And just like that, my son was gone, riding toward the altar in a car driven by the woman who was lying to him with every breath. Miles grabbed my elbow. "Now," he whispered. I was shaking so hard my teeth clicked. "Tell me what you know," I demanded. Miles did not answer with a speech. He answered with his phone. He pulled it from his pocket and showed me a picture. It was Waverly, holding that little girl outside the same house. The timestamp was from 6 weeks ago. My vision blurred. Then he swiped to another. A man handing Waverly an envelope. Same driveway, different day. Then another. Waverly kissing the man in the doorway. Not a polite peck. Something familiar, something real. My stomach lurched. Miles's voice stayed low. "I followed her after the rehearsal dinner. She came here. She went in through the side door. She stayed 40 minutes. Then she drove to your house and kissed Mr. Sterling on the porch like nothing happened." My hands went to my mouth. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" Miles's eyes flashed with pain. "Because I needed proof that would hold. If I told you without it, she would twist it. She would make you look jealous, unstable, and your son would defend her. He loves her. He would choose her." The truth of that sliced me open. Sterling would have chosen her. Miles added, "I have more. Enough to ruin her story. But we have to move fast. She is taking him to the church in her car for a reason. To isolate him," I whispered, the words tasting like metal. Miles nodded. "And to control the timing." My legs felt weak. "What is this, Miles? Is she married? Is that her husband?" "I don't know about married," he said. "But I know she has a life she is hiding. And I know she is desperate." "Desperate for what?" Miles exhaled. "Money, protection, a name, and something else." "What else?" He looked at me, and for the first time his calm cracked. "Someone is hunting her," he said. "And she thinks your family can buy her safety." My blood ran cold. I glanced at the house. The side door was shut now. The front windows looked still. But I could not stop thinking about the little girl inside. The way she asked about a recital. The way she hugged Waverly without hesitation. I swallowed hard. "We cannot leave that child in this." Miles nodded grim. "I know." A car door slammed from inside the driveway. A neighbor maybe. Or the man. Or someone else. Miles gripped my elbow tighter. "You have to decide something right now. We go to the church and stop the wedding. Or we go to that door and force the truth out before she reaches the altar." My breath hitched. If I went to the church, I would shatter Sterling in front of everyone. If I went to the door, I might walk into something dangerous. Miles's eyes held mine, steady and urgent. "Dahlia, if she is being threatened, the man behind it will not care that it's a wedding day. He will care about leverage." Leverage. My mind flashed to the child. The stuffed rabbit. My fingers curled into my palm. "I'm going to that door," I said, my voice shaking but solid. Not to scream, not to beg, not to accuse. I'm going to listen. And then I'm going to take control back from her. Miles nodded once. "Stay behind me." We moved up the driveway like shadows, the morning sun too bright for the kind of fear I was carrying. Miles knocked once, hard and deliberate. The door opened just a crack. The man's face appeared, guarded, suspicious. Then his eyes dropped to my dress. My age, my expression, and recognition hit him like a punch. "Oh," he whispered, voice breaking. "You're his mother." "Yes," I said, keeping my voice steady even though my hands were shaking. "And you're going to open this door, because if you slam it in my face, I will still stop the wedding. I just need to know how much blood you're willing to spill before noon." The door opened wider. Up close, he looked worse. Not villain worse, cornered worse. The kind of man who hadn't slept in weeks and kept checking his phone like it was a detonator. "My name's Beckett," he said quietly, eyes flicking to the street. "Beckett Rhodes." Rhodes, the mailbox, the house. The lie wrapped in normal paint and a weak lawn. Miles stayed half a step in front of me, his body angled like a shield. Beckett looked at him like he knew exactly what Miles was and didn't want to test it. "I'm not here to fight," I told Beckett. "I'm here because my son is on his way to a church thinking he's marrying a woman who loves him. And the woman you just watched walk out of this house is using my child like a life raft." Beckett's eyes watered fast, like he'd been holding it in and my words cut the string. "She wasn't supposed to bring him here," he whispered. My stomach dropped. "So she has done this before." Beckett flinched. "Not this, not the wedding, but the split life, the rehearsed life." I took a breath through my nose. Slow, like I was in a boardroom instead of a driveway with my heart in my mouth. "The little girl," I said. "Is she yours?" Beckett nodded. "Her name is Ileana." The name hit me in the chest. Not because it was familiar, because it made everything real. A child with a name means a child with a bedtime and favorite cereal and a backpack waiting by the door. A child who doesn't deserve to be a pawn in an adult disaster. "And Waverly," I said carefully. "Is that her real name?" Beckett's mouth twitched, almost a laugh, but it came out like pain. "No, I knew it. I knew it, and still hearing it made my vision tilt." "What is it?" He hesitated, and Miles's voice cut in, low and controlled. "Beckett, answer her." Beckett swallowed. "Her real name is Marlowe." Marlowe. The polished laugh, the perfect clothes, the fundraising speeches. All of it built on a name that wasn't even hers. My knees felt weak, but I held my posture. Because the moment you look like you're falling apart, people like Marlowe use it as proof you were always unstable. "Why?" I asked. "Why my son?" Beckett stared past me at the street, as if he couldn't bear looking at the shape of what he'd helped create. "It started with debt," he said. "Medical bills, then a loan, a bad loan. We thought it was a normal lender." He wore a suit. He talked like a businessman, but it wasn't business. "Who?" I said, voice sharp. Beckett's throat bobbed. "His name is Hartley Vaughn." Miles went still beside me. That told me everything. Miles already knew that name. "What is he?" I asked. Beckett's voice dropped. "A fixer. He runs people. He uses debt like a leash. And when he wants leverage, he takes it." My stomach flipped. "Takes it how?" Beckett's eyes darted to the door behind him. To the house. To the life inside. "He threatened Ileana," he whispered. "Not directly. He doesn't say it outright. He implies it. He says things like accidents happen, schools are public, playgrounds are open. And then he sends a picture of her holding her rabbit like he's standing 10 feet away." I felt my hands go numb. "Why didn't you call the police?" Beckett gave a broken laugh. "Because he knows cops, or he knows people who know cops. And because he knows where we live. He knows where my mother lives. He doesn't just threaten you. He shows you he can reach you, so you stop being brave." My voice went cold. "And Marlowe decided marrying my son would fix it." Beckett nodded miserably. "She said your family has money and lawyers and influence. She said if she got in, if she got access, if she got the name, Hartley would back off." "And you believed her," I said. He looked at me with shame so raw it made my anger wobble for half a second. "I didn't believe she loved him," he admitted. "But I believed she could get us out. I believed she could keep Ileana safe." The quiet in the air felt heavy. The kind of quiet where you can hear your own moral line being tested. I took a breath. "Do you have proof?" Beckett nodded fast. Like he was relieved, I asked the practical question instead of the emotional one. "Yes, I have everything." Because I didn't trust her either. That surprised me. "I kept copies," he continued. "Screenshots, printed messages, a real marriage certificate." My head snapped up. "You are married." Beckett's face crumpled. "Legally, 4 years." 4 years? My son had known her too. Which meant she had been lying from the very beginning, not as a mistake, not as a panic, but as a plan. A plan with a timeline. I heard Miles inhale slowly, like he was keeping himself from saying something that would scare me. "Bring it," I said to Beckett. "Now." Beckett looked terrified. "If Hartley finds out we're talking, he's going to find out anyway," I said, voice steady. "Because your wife just drove my son toward a church in a car she controls. She is executing her plan. We are interrupting it. And if we don't interrupt it now, she will get legal access to my son's life. Not just his heart, his accounts, his assets, his name, his trust. Beckett's eyes squeezed shut. Then he nodded once, like a man choosing a consequence. "Come in," he said. I stepped inside with Miles behind me, the living room small, clean, and painfully normal. Toys on the floor. A framed school photo on the wall. A half-finished bowl of cereal on the coffee table. Ileana sat on the rug building something with blocks. When she looked up and saw me, her eyes widened, curious, not afraid. "Hi," she said softly. My throat tightened. I forced a gentle smile because no child deserves to see an adult's rage. "Hi, sweetheart," I said. "You have beautiful hair." She touched her curls, proud. "Mom did it." Of course she did. Of course she could be tender when it served her. Beckett disappeared into a bedroom and came back with a thick folder and a small lockbox. His hands shook so badly, he almost dropped them. He laid everything out on the table, like he was laying out a body. A marriage certificate with a state seal. Photos of Marlo and Beckett and Ileana on birthdays, holidays, beach days. Not staged. Real. Worn at the edges like they'd been handled 100 times. Then printed messages. Marlo texting Beckett about Sterling. "He is lonely. He is grieving. He wants a new family. He will not question me if I keep him emotionally busy." My stomach turned. Another message. "His mother watches me. She thinks she's smart. She's not. I will make her look controlling." Another. "After the wedding, we move fast. Joint accounts, insurance, anything with his signature, we take only what we need and vanish." I stared at the words until they blurred. Miles took a photo of each page with his phone, fast, methodical. Evidence. Time. Control. Beckett whispered, "There's more." He opened the lockbox and pulled out a folded stack of papers. Loan documents. Not from a bank. From a private entity with a clean logo and clean language that hid ugly teeth in small clauses. Hartley Vaughn's name was on them. And at the bottom, a line that made my blood run cold. Collateral. I looked up at Beckett. "He wrote your child into the contract." Beckett's face broke. "He said it was symbolic, just a pressure tactic." Symbolic. The word people use when they want to pretend evil is just a misunderstanding. I exhaled slowly, then reached into my purse and pulled out my phone. Finally, something I could use. I called my attorney, not the firm's front desk. My attorney. When he answered, I didn't waste breath on emotion. "Grant," I said. "I need you at St. Alora's now. Wedding is in less than an hour. Bring security. Call the police. The bride is committing fraud and bigamy. There is a child being threatened by a man named Hartley Vaughn. I need officers and I need them discreet." There was a pause, just long enough for me to hear him switch into work mode. "On it," Grant said. "Do not confront her alone." "I'm not," I replied, glancing at Miles. "I have Miles." Miles's jaw tightened slightly. He hated being named like a weapon, but he stood taller anyway. I ended the call and looked at Beckett. "You and Ileana are coming to the church, but you are not walking in until I signal. Do you understand?" Beckett's eyes widened. "If she sees me, she won't see you," Miles said. "Not until she has no way to talk her way out." Ileana looked up from her blocks. "Are we going somewhere?" Beckett's face shifted, softening. "Yes, baby." "Will there be flowers?" she asked. My chest tightened. "Yes," I said gently. "There will be flowers." We moved fast. Miles drove, Beckett and Ileana in the back seat, Ileana humming to herself like she was going to a party. I wanted to cry. I wanted to scream. I wanted to rewind time to the first night Marlo stepped into my house and I ignored the way her eyes measured everything. But time only moves forward, so I did too. At the cathedral, everything looked perfect. The kind of perfect that hides rot under white lace. Guests in suits, bridesmaids laughing, cameras flashing. Sterling somewhere behind the altar, breathing through nerves, believing today was a beginning. Miles parked in the back lot. Grant was already there with 2 plainclothes security men and a police officer who looked like he'd been briefed on how delicate this needed to be. Grant approached me, his eyes sharp. "We can stop the ceremony quietly," he said. "We can pull the marriage license. We can remove her." I shook my head once. "Not quietly." Grant blinked. I kept my voice calm. "She's been building a story that I'm controlling. If we pull her aside, she'll cry. She'll twist it. She'll paint my son as unstable and me as cruel. I want Sterling to see her without the mask, in front of the same people she planned to charm." Grant held my gaze for a moment, then nodded. "Understood. We'll be ready." Miles guided Beckett and Ileana to a side corridor with security, out of sight. Ileana clutched her rabbit, wide-eyed at the stained glass. "This is a castle," she whispered. In a way it was. I walked to the groom's prep room, my heels steady, my face composed. When Sterling opened the door and saw me, relief flooded his eyes. "Mom," he said, smiling. "Where were you earlier? I was worried." My heart cracked, but I kept my voice gentle. "I needed a moment. Come with me for 30 seconds, sweetheart." He frowned. Now, I said. Sterling followed me into a quiet hallway. Grant stood at a distance, letting it look normal. I took Sterling's hands and held them the way I used to when he was small and scared. "I need you to listen," I said softly. "And I need you to trust me even if it hurts." Sterling's smile faltered. "What's going on?" I didn't accuse. I didn't rant. I handed him my phone with the photos Miles took. Sterling's eyes scanned the marriage certificate first, then the texts, then the loan document. His face drained of color so fast it was like watching him lose blood. His hands started shaking. "No," he whispered. "No, this is fake. This has to be fake." I kept my voice steady. "It's real, and there is a child involved. A little girl named Ileana. She is innocent. And your bride is trying to use you to buy safety." Sterling stared at the screen again, like his eyes could change the words by refusing them. Then he looked up at me, and the grief in his face wasn't just heartbreak. It was betrayal. "She never," he began, then his voice broke. "She never said she had a child." I swallowed hard. "Because you were never her future, Sterling. You were her exit." His jaw tightened. His eyes turned glassy. He inhaled slowly, then exhaled like he was forcing himself not to collapse. "What do I do?" he whispered. I leaned in close. "You walk to that altar with your head up. You let her believe she's still in control. And when the moment comes, you take your life back." Sterling nodded once. Not because he was okay, because he was choosing dignity over denial. The organ music started. The ceremony moved like any other. Smiles, prayers, people whispering about how beautiful Marlo looked, how radiant she was, how lucky Sterling was. I sat in the front row, hands folded, face calm, while my stomach burned. Marlo entered in white, perfect, glowing, eyes shining like she was the heroine of her own story. Sterling's eyes filled with tears when he saw her, because love doesn't shut off instantly. It just starts bleeding. They reached the altar. The Reverend spoke about trust and honesty and love, and each word felt like a blade being sharpened. Then the moment came. "If anyone here knows a reason why these two should not be joined." Silence. Marlo's shoulders eased with relief. Sterling squeezed her hand, and then Sterling let go. He stepped back, turned, and looked at the congregation with a calm I didn't know he had. "I have a reason," he said, voice steady, "and I'm going to say it myself." The room froze. Marlo's smile twitched. "Sterling, what is this?" Sterling didn't look at her. He looked at me just once. Then he looked toward the side entrance. Miles nodded. Beckett walked in holding Ileana's hand. Ileana, wide-eyed at all the flowers, whispered loudly, "Mommy, you look like a princess." The sound that went through the cathedral wasn't just a gasp. It was a collective understanding of a lie finally exposed. Marlo's face went paperwhite. Sterling turned to her then, eyes wet but voice flat. "What's your real name?" he asked. Marlo opened her mouth. No sound came out. Sterling held up the printed marriage certificate Grant had already placed in his hands. "Marlo Rhodes," he said to the room, voice shaking now. "Married for 4 years, with a child. And she planned to marry me today anyway." Marlo stumbled, grabbing the altar rail. Grant stepped forward with the police officer at exactly the right second, like we had choreographed it, because we had. The officer spoke calmly. "Marlo Rhodes, you're being detained for fraud and bigamy. You need to come with us." Marlo's eyes snapped to me, wild with rage and panic. "You did this," she hissed. I met her gaze without blinking. "No," I said quietly. "You did." Sterling didn't yell. He didn't beg. He didn't break in front of her, the way she expected. He just looked at her, voice low enough that only the front row could hear, but clear enough to cut. "You hunted a grieving man," he said. "You built love out of lies, and you still think you're the victim." Marlo's mouth trembled. "I was trying to save my daughter." Sterling's eyes flicked to Ileana, to the rabbit in her hand, to the confusion in her face. "I will help her," Sterling said, voice breaking. "But I will never help you again." The officer took Marlo's arm. She tried to pull back, but security closed in, firm and quiet. As she was guided down the aisle, Marlo twisted to look at me one last time, hatred burning in her face. I didn't give her a dramatic line. I didn't give her satisfaction. I simply watched her go. Because the most painful thing you can do to someone who lives on control is deny them your reaction. Outside, Grant's team moved fast. Hartley Vaughn was already being questioned in the parking lot. Not because of luck, but because Grant had filed an emergency report while we were driving, and the police had been waiting for him to show up and collect. Beckett sank onto a bench, shaking, pulling Ileana close. Ileana whispered, Is Mommy in trouble? Beckett's voice cracked. Yes, baby, but you're safe. Sterling walked out of the cathedral in his suit, the flowers still lining the aisle behind him like a joke the world tried to play. He stopped beside me. His shoulders trembled once, then he exhaled. Mom, he whispered, voice raw. Thank you for not letting me sign my life away. I touched his cheek, my hand shaking now that the danger was past. I'm sorry, I said, that I didn't trust my instincts sooner. Sterling swallowed hard. You trusted them when it mattered. We stood there, mother and son, under a sky that looked too blue for what had almost happened. Later, when the guests had gone and the cathedral had emptied, Sterling did one thing that healed something in me. He walked over to Miles, held out his hand and said, You saved me. Miles's eyes glistened. I kept my promise. Sterling nodded once. Then your family. And in the quiet that followed, I realized the twist I hadn't expected. The wedding wasn't the beginning that got stolen from my son. It was the trap that failed, because the people who loved him refused to stay silent.